I hope you're doing well. Today we will see what are the weirdest experiments performed throughout history. And I welcome you to the Question Answer channel, the channel where you will find the answer to everything. Today the answers will be presented by Sayan Chaudhary, Hantani Sadahiko, Jesus Odosgoiti and Tobias Jonch. We will start with the first answer of Sayan Chaudhary.
Easily, this one. Take a look at this picture, a nice long look. Now, tell me what is going on here. No, you are not hallucinating. You are not on drugs or high. This is not Photoshop. This is actually a rhino, hanging upside down from its ankles, being dangled by a helicopter. Your first thought might be that this is horrendous. The poor animals are going to be severely hurt. Surely, this must be the work of someone without a soul. Nope, this is a science experiment, being funded by Namibian Ministry of Environment. And it's actually helping them to save the rhino population from dwindling even more. You see, due to widespread poaching of these animals, their populations have become very low, with most of the animals being concentrated in places like national parks and wildlife reserves. However, there's a problem which arises due to this high concentration: inbreeding. Rhinos, unable to find mates from outside, have to resort to mating among their own gene pool. This, of course, leads to a lot of problems, none of which are good for the rhino population. Because of this, groups dedicated to preserving these majestic beasts have been shifting rhinos away from their families when they reach maturity, so that they can reproduce outside their own gene pool and prevent inbreeding. As to how they perform this shifting, the rhinos were tranquilized before being secured in box. This box, containing the rhino lying in it, was then flown to other regions by helicopters. However, analysis showed that this position was quite harmful to the rhinos. In this position, the muscles of the side on which they were lying get damaged. These muscles are simply unable to handle their immense weight. Their lungs also suffer. I don't exactly get how, but from what I understood, it's due to the imbalance of oxygen supply to the two lungs. The one on the lying side gets a lot of oxygen, but the one facing the sky gets too little. And here enters the hero of our story, Radcliffe, a wildlife veterinarian from Cornell Uni. He proposed that instead of being carried on their side, the rhinos should be hung from their ankles. Yeah, I don't get it either. This sounds like an insane idea, and it is. But much to everyone's surprise, his solution actually was proven to be better than the previous method. He and his colleagues showed the effectiveness of this method by transporting 12 tranquilized black rhinos with the help of the Namibian Ministry of Environment. In fact, the guy's idea was so ridiculous, yet effective, that he won the ig-nobel prize for transport technology this year. The motto of the ig-nobel prize is, research that makes people laugh and then think. And I must say, if there's any piece of research which deserves this prize, it's this one. Micsoda verdammt, verrückter Junge.
The following answer is from Hantani Sadahiko.
It's a Universe 25 experiment. 1. What happens to animals in a kind of paradise where there are no natural enemies? Was to find out that, by American scientist Dr. John Calhoun. It was held around 1970. Here is the result flow. They created a special space for mice, a mouse paradise, with plenty of food and water and plenty of living space. First we placed 4 pairs of clam rats. They soon began breeding, and the mouse population soared. However, after 315 days, fecundity began to decline significantly. When the number of rats reached 600, a hierarchy formed among them, and so-called hikikomori emerged. The males began to break down psychologically, and as a result, the larger individuals began to attack the entire group. As a result, females abandoned their primary role in protecting themselves and their young and began to show aggression toward younger individuals. Over time, the mortality rate of young mice reached 100% and the reproductive rate dropped to 0. Homosexuality was observed among endangered mice, and cannibalism increased in spite of the abundance of food. 2 years after the experiment began, the last baby of the experimental paradise was born. By 1973, all mice in Universe 25 were dead. The experimenter repeated it 25 more times, each time with the same result. People talk about withdrawal, non-marriage and gender issues as if they are looking at Japan today. Footnotes. 1. Xiang Mo Yuan.
What do you think? We will continue with Jesus Odosgoiti's answer.
Nicolae Minovici was a Romanian scientist who was obsessed with finding out what happens to the human body during a hanging. In fact, he wrote an essay in which he analyzed almost 200 cases of people who had been hanged, and the factors that influenced, such as the type of knot of the rope, the weight and even the gender of the person. Minovici, he was not happy with just reading about people who had been executed in this way. He wanted to know how he really felt, so, and to answer your question, he started a series of quite strange experiments and above all dangerous. First he did some preliminary tests with a rope that did not contract. He hung himself 6 times a few seconds to get used to it, but as Minovici himself wrote in his notes, the pain was almost intolerable. Still, he was determined to experience what it felt like to be hanged, so he leveled up. He and some of his collaborators put their heads in a regular contraction rope and asked an assistant to hang them 12 times in a row. When describing previous experiments, Minovici repeatedly apologizes, saying that despite all his courage, he could not endure the experiment for more than 3 or 4 seconds. Despite his efforts, Minovici failed to find tangible results from his series of hangings, which in total numbered almost a dozen. The only tangible thing to find would have been death, I believe. That is why I nominate Nicolas Minovici and his research as the strangest series of experiments in history. Hey, if you like this type of content, follow Ineffable Curiosity. Nicolae Minovici, Wikipedia, Romanian forensic scientist and criminologist, 1868 to 1941, Minovici, center, performing an autopsy, c. 1900. To his left, in dark suit, perched, is anatomist Francisque Rayner, then an intern. Nikolai S. Minovici, the 23rd of October 1868 to 26 June 1941, was a Romanian forensic scientist and criminologist who served as head of his country's anthropometric service. 1. 2. He is known for his studies investigating connections between tattooing and criminal behavior. 2. As well as his research on hanging and its physiological effects on the human body. 3. 4. He was the founder of the Legal Medicine Association of Romania and the publisher of the Romanian Journal of Legal Medicine. 5. He also served as mayor of Banisa. 1. Early life and education, edit. Minovici was born in Râmnicu Sărat on the 23rd of October 1868, into a family of Aromanian origin. He had two older brothers, Mina Minovici and Stefan Minovici. After going to elementary school in Brăila, he completed his secondary education at St. Sava High School in Bucharest. 1. He pursued his studies at the Faculty of Medicine, and then he obtained his PhD in forensic science in 1898, with thesis on Les Tatuages en Romanie, Tattoos in Romania, 6, which he published next year in Archive des Sciences Médicales. 7. He also took additional courses in psychiatry and pathological anatomy. 1. Research, edit. His research on the effects of hanging on the human body included performing multiple hanging experiments on himself, each lasting for a period of approximately 5 seconds. 8. Minovici performed 12 hanging experiments involving himself as the subject. 3. He used a dynamometer attached to a knot which he then tied around his neck and experimented with various positions of the knot around his neck, observing associated phenomena such as vision disturbances, change of skin coloring and ringing in his ears as well as the speed of the onset of these symptoms. He also attempted between 6 and 7 hangings with the assistance of his aides and only experienced pain on the occasion when his feet lost contact with the ground. One of his assistants pulled the rope while loudly counting the time allotted for the experiment. 3. 9. In the initial experiments the knot was not constricting and his feet were raised 2 meters above ground. 9. In this configuration, after a progressive series of experiments each lasting longer than its predecessor, he was able to remain hanging for a maximum of 25 seconds. 9. In his final experiment using a regular, constricting, hangman's knot he was able to stand only for 4 seconds, before he gave the signal to his aides to stop the experiment. During that experiment his feet had remained in contact with the ground. Nevertheless, he experienced pain, while swallowing, for a month following that experiment. 9. He also performed choking experiments on volunteers by applying pressure on their carotid arteries and jugular veins for up to 5s.
The next answer is from Tobias Jonge.
The study showing that if your politicians are fat, your country is more likely to be corrupt. The researchers took 299 pictures of politicians in former Soviet countries and had computer algorithms estimate their body mass index, an indicator of how overweight people are. They then took that estimate and correlated it with status reports on corruption from esteemed organizations such as Transparency International, World Bank and WHO. And yes, they found a strong connection between how fat the politicians of a country are and how corrupt that country is. 1. Correlation with Transparency International report on corruption. Correlation with the World Bank report on corruption. I believe the really important question is, how fat are your politicians compared to Estonia? Footnotes. 1. Obesity of politicians and corruption in post-Soviet countries.
This is the end of the video. I hope you have more answers. Remember to subscribe if you like the video. The likes also help a lot for referencing. You know what you have to do. We are coming to the end of this video. You can continue the debate on this question in the comments with the community. See you soon.